introduce yourself.
Oh. I'm Elise. I'm an artist and I love everything that, I guess, changes or challenges my perspective.
Okay. What kind of art do you make?
That's a really good question. I think I do almost a bit of everything. I think because I'm so interactive with the world, I do a lot of like sculpture, visual, I do painting, writing, illustrating, digital, clay work, murals, everything.
Is there a particular one that you gravitate towards mostly?
Yeah, I think they come and go in waves depending on what's kind of grabbing my interest. At the moment, it's like book carvings and doing sculptural pieces based on the land that I guess I'm exploring and traveling around at the moment.
Yeah. Well, tell us a bit more about the book carvings. Like, what are you doing there?
I guess I'm trying to document the beauty and the simplicity of what nature is, in the sense that it's lines. It's like lines built up is what creates the landscapes that we get to have on, and I want to be able to explore, I guess, a different way of seeing the world.
Okay, a different way of seeing the world. Can you dive into that a little bit? What's this different way?
I don't know. I think over the years I've just gone about traveling the world with a pure curiosity. I'm like, what happens if, like, what even is a tree? What does it mean for it to be alive? And like really challenging the way I get to see the world, which makes things seem a lot more colourful, a lot more different, a lot more, I don't even have the words to explain it. And I think being able to capture that is something that really excites me, of breaking down. Like we walk around, we drive over hills all the time. It kind of means nothing. It's like, oh, this traffic sucks. But if you can start to see it in a different way, of it being lines and foundations that then build a shape, it kind of changes the way that you then interact with it.
Okay, and is this an ongoing thing? Are you working on it like as a large series, or is it just something you're working on now and then you think you'll move on to something else? Or because
I think it's one line of work that will always continue to develop, and I would love to do this really large scale. I think I would love to be able to see how far can I push this interest of line and form through topography and carving. Like, what's its limit? Like, what size is its limit? How far can I keep flipping, changing, building, bringing down, photographing and shaping? Like, I want to kind of see the limit, but I think that's going to be still parallel with other works that are going to be on the go at the same time.
Is that this pushing limits thing, is that something that you do in other work as well?
Yeah, in every realm, I think. I love pushing myself, my body, my mind especially, to limits. And I think that's, I guess I've never really thought of that in the art world, but that's exactly what it is. I want to know my limits in all areas. And I think, with the book carvings, how far can I take the idea of landscape has gone to that.
Well, so that's with the carvings. How else are you exploring your limits?
The way I travel. I think I've just, on my way down from traveling the coast the last 4 months, kind of out of my car, and last week I got to go ice climbing and was out snow camping, and before that living at a yoga retreat painting murals. And I think the world becomes my playground, and I really get to see what I can do with the space that I'm in, wherever I am in. Training for an ultra marathon at the moment, and just really seeing, I guess, how far I can take things in a healthy way as well. Not just like, I'm going to see what's the absolute end no matter what pain. It's like kind of having this intuitive feedback of, okay, this feels really good and I want to see where I can take that. This doesn't feel good and I don't want to go any further with that. So it's interesting.
You're training for an ultra marathon. Mm-hmm. What's an ultra marathon? How far is that?
So I'm training for 100k in Kosciuszko.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I'm speechless at that.
Yeah.
So you're quite sporty, and you're arty. How did that happen? I haven't met very many people who are both very, very sporty and very arty.
Well, I think it's interesting because I find when I'm in the adventure world, part of my art side I don't think gets quite fulfilled, and when I'm in just the artwork, part of my adventure side doesn't feel like it gets quite fulfilled. So I need a bit of both. Like, I love, being out climbing and being with other people, but at the same time, within that time, I need solitude. And I think that's where I found trail running, which is the perfect way that I can explore my mind, have solitude. A lot of ideas come to me when I'm moving. So hiking, walking, running, that's where both come together. That I can be seeing the world, perceiving the world, getting so much inspiration from around, and having the space in my mind for ideas to come. But in terms of, art and adventure, it's not something that I was like, oh, let's see if I can put the two together. It's part of me. And I think it's been a really interesting journey seeing how and where they correlate.
So is it sort of like, does it take you to like this, the things like running, like to this meditative state? Like I've heard of something called runner's high or something like that. Is that what that is? And is that where, I guess, you're creative? Do they actively come out while you're running, let's say?
Yeah, I think for me, moving is, I need it. It's a really interesting relationship, I think, where when I move, it's like ideas come. It's almost as if I sit and, like, say if I'm problem solving or wanting to come up with an idea, if I schedule the morning and sit and be like, cool, I want to work through this, nothing comes. I'll sit at a screen, I'll stare at a screen, I'll stare at a blank piece of paper, nothing comes. But while I'm on like a really long drive or a trail or out on the road, it's almost like everything from the subconscious gets processed and comes through. So even like on my run this morning, I just had all these different ideas about, it's a way of processing what's next to me, what I want, and just to make sense of what ideas are coming to me.
What do you do when you can't move? Like if you've got to, say, I don't know, a period of a month where you're not going anywhere, let's say you're a bit crook and you're not running and stuff like that, what happens then to your creativity? Does it kind of stagnate a little, or?
No, I just find it in other ways. I think I can find it through like scrapbooking. I can find it through reading. It's anything that gives me flow state.
Yeah.
It's that state of my mind where I'm not actively thinking, I'm not actively not thinking. I'm just kind of doing or being. That ideas seem to come to me.
What's flow state?
Flow state is that period where it's like not challenging you so much that it's really difficult, but it's not so easy that you're numb. And it's just I think that is the most coherent theme of my life, is chasing that flow state, that beautiful feeling of like when hours go by and you don't realize, when you're completely involved in your work, that you don't even realize what's behind you, that the lights have turned off, that you're the last one in the cafe. It just, I don't know the state. And
you said you're always chasing it, so it's almost like you're not catching it. Would that be accurate? Like it's something that you kind of, you can grasp momentarily, but you can't stay there.
Maybe chasing's not the right word, but it's something that if I were to plan my life as to what aspects I want to really hone in on, it's the things that give me flow state. So like slacklining, climbing, writing, drawing, all these things are things that give me flow state, and the more I have of it, the more of this like blissful mindset I'm in.
Is there a difference between the flow state you get from physical activity and the flow state you get from creative activity? Which they're two quite different. Like running is a lot of physical exertion, whereas creating something is a lot more mental. Is there a difference in the flow states there?
No, I think flow state's still the same. It's just what avenue you take to get there. And I think for some people get into a flow state a lot easier through one avenue than the other. For example, for me in running, like as soon as I hit the trails, I can get that flow state where someone's like, I couldn't think of anything worse. Same with like art. Maybe for me doing a sculpture, I'm straight into that flow state. For others, it's not. But maybe for music, I don't think I can really get a flow state as easy as others. It doesn't come as natural. I've got to think about it a bit more. So I think the actual feeling of flow state is very universal. I think for everyone can feel it, and everyone has access and potential. It's just what way that you get to it differs.
Is there an ideal way to figure out what gets you into that flow state? How did you figure it out?
Trial and error. I've tried everything. I've tried whitewater rafting and kayaking and swimming and traveling and reading and writing poems and all these different things that I'm like, I'll just give it a try. And some things I get completely lost in, and some I'm like, I tried it, not really my thing. But I think just being really open and curious to actually just giving it a go.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm really curious about this kind of these two extremes that you have. I mean, is there one that you prefer over the other?
I need both.
You need both.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a hypothetical, if you had to choose, what would you let go of?
Adventure. I would choose art.
You would choose art?
It's my language. I think it's the only way it makes sense of the world.
I actually guessed differently.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Art is my identity. It's the way I see the world. It's like almost like it goes through my art lens first, and then like in my internal world, and then to the external world. And I think what it always comes down to is how unique art is to me. It's my ideas and conversations and places I've been to that then gets expressed and understood. Whereas adventure, I feel like the land is for everyone. Like everyone can walk the same trail I've walked. But art is unique because it's because of the conversation I may have had in the cafe or the person I met or coming here, that uniqueness is what allows a piece to be made. So, yeah.
Wow. So, where do you think this desire comes from? What's the root of it?
The desire for art?
To create.
It's so innate. It's like it's within me. I've tried to like shake it and be like, oh, I'll give it a break, and it's just something about it being a process in the way that I live that it's the only way I can make sense of the world. It's the only way that I can. I don't know. Even it's just something that's within me that is like waiting to be expressed. It's like it's there within me. It's like it's just waiting to find its way out, and it's waiting to find its voice, and it's waiting to find its avenue to find its expression.
Okay, I had a question flash into my mind, and then it disappeared, and it was about what you were just saying. So this is a little embarrassing, but So is it all creation, all creating, all forms of creating?
Yeah, I think I have an idea, and it takes different avenues to come out.
So the idea, you come up with an idea, and then based on that idea, you decide whether it's something you're going to paint or sculpt or...
Yeah. But I think it comes from a very interactive lens, like something from the outside world will inspire me. And I love to just take it as it comes, like going for a road trip down, the colours of something might inspire me. And like, that's all it takes, that one glimpse or that moment of just being like, that's what sparked the idea. And then I can create, a body of works, or it will be something that's just recently happened and I've understood, and then just like working through that. I think rather than looking at other artists, I definitely do, but rather than trying to force something, I try and be as intuitive as I can with what I create.
So do you take inspiration from other artists, or is it, I'm hearing a lot of like, being out in the world and all that sort of stuff, but do you visit galleries? Do you take inspiration from other people's work?
Yeah, I definitely do, but I think what's really interesting is that me and my art is what creates this coherent line in my life. I feel like my life is just so confusing when, 1 minute I'm by the coast, the next I'm down here, the next I'm doing this. Like, it almost as if I live 100 different lives, couch surfing. I'm in so many different houses. It doesn't really make sense, but there's this one consistent thing of my life, which is what I create in the time that shows where I'm at. And when I'm creating works purely based on seeing something on Pinterest, for example, and recreating it, it doesn't say anything about that moment or that time, because it's interfered with the fact that I just Googled something and recreated it or got inspired. Whereas if it's something that, say with the book carvings, I've been recently to a place where I've been climbing and I was really fascinated by the rocks. Me then creating that book carving is like a timestamp of that moment.
Do you think if you consumed more of other people's art, actually, do you think it would kind of hurt the originality of what you're doing? Is that kind of...
I think it will weave in. I think it will just show that that's what inspired me at the time. And I really do love looking at other artists for ideas. And it is definitely still a big part.
Going back to the book carving, so how did you come up with that? Like that particular idea? Because I mean, I can understand the kind of the forms and shapes in nature, but then, I mean, you could have painted that, you could have sculpted that out of clay, but you decided to carve books. Like,
it's really interesting.
How did you match those two up?
Really interesting. I never got inspiration from seeing anything before. Usually an idea, like say for painting, you can kind of see something online or see from another artist and kind of be like, oh, you know, I'll give that a try, and then you find your own style. And I'm not sure what it was with the books, because I used to, when I was even younger, so this is even more strange, to like sit at a cafe by myself and carve through them. People are like, what are you doing? Like, what's it even for? I'm like, it's just a piece I'm doing. And so later down the track, I've been lucky enough to have them exhibited and commissioned. But from where it actually started was art therapy. So for my mental health journey, art therapy was a really big part of it. And I remember coming up with the idea of, it started out poetry through words. So I'd flick through a page and find a poem and then kind of black out the rest. And then I started cutting out the words and like rearranging them. I started cutting out, and there was something really therapeutic about just like carving into the book. And then I'm not actually sure how my first sculptural one went, but I just was like, what would happen if I just went all the way through and kept going? And then that's continued to be explored.
Makes a lot more sense now. You mentioned mental health and art making. This is a theme I'm seeing a lot of, like people using art to help with their mental health. Do you think that's where your creativity, or maybe even creativity in general, comes from? Is it kind of a desire to heal?
Yeah. But I think it can go, it's like a chicken or egg. Like, what comes first? Is it the fact that we have a really creative brain that then causes that kind of mental health, and then that's something you've got to heal? Or is it the other way around? I really don't know. But I think there's something really profound in the fact that it does help you heal. So I'm not sure what came first, but the fact that I went through what I went through was exactly what I needed to go through a massive process of healing. And the way I healed was through art. Like, the works I was doing were really dark and really heavy. Like, my parents were a bit like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Is this something to talk about? Even the years after being well, it was something that I kept going back to work through. And it was the most therapeutic thing I've ever done.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've always wondered. Like, if you are using, say, art to heal, once you feel you're healed, does the creative drive stop? And it's got to be a scary proposition for anyone, really. And I think to myself, does it also make people want to keep themselves in a less than ideal state so they can keep creating?
Well, it's interesting. And I think a lot of musicians feel that way, where it's like, because they've gone through a bad breakup or something intense and that creates good music, what happens if they become normal? And I think, well, not normal, but become well. And I think that's definitely interesting, because my works become a lot more lighthearted, or the subject becomes a lot more lighthearted when I'm in a really good headspace, a lot more like, hey, I'm really interested in landscapes and things a bit more lighter. But I think you can never fully be healed. And if you are at that point, you can still go deeper. You can find another avenue to go within. You can never be fully healed. So I think there's always a way and a space to go further.
You mentioned your parents earlier. How supportive have they been of this kind of path you've chosen for your life with art making?
They're actually really supportive. I think when I was unwell, it was a really challenging time with them and that relationship. But I think that's what we strengthened over the fact that I fought so hard to get well again. And to begin with, it was really scary. And I think that's for any parent being like, okay, your child is choosing a path that isn't guaranteed money, isn't guaranteed anything stable, isn't guaranteed sick pay. they don't really know where it's going. And so they were a little bit unsure and unsettled where it would go. But I think they've just seen how much zest I've got for life now and what opportunities it's been able to bring, that, yeah, they're supportive of the fact that it makes me happy.
What did they do to support?
They let me do what it is that I need to do. And whatever that is, they're not questioning, they're not putting doubt in my head. Like, there are obviously times when money might be a struggle and they're not just like, well, you need work, you need to find. They're not putting that pressure of you need something or it's not going to work. They haven't put any pressure on the fact that, I'm not enough or not worthy enough. They've got the support of that unconditional love, which I think I'm very lucky for. And I don't think I need them to understand. I don't think they're ever going to understand, and I don't think I'll ever feel understood at home or in the suburbs. And I think that's why I always travel.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that people understand you.
No. I think I used to fight so much to feel understood. And then I realized, like, even the beauty of art is the fact that you are different. And the fact that you see differently is what gives you the perspective of doing art. If you saw the same, then what's there to show?
Yeah. So the creative spark that you felt around the time of your mental health issues, is that the first time or does it go back earlier?
I think that's when I really noticed something. I mean, I always loved the fact that I was, really bubbly, really quirky. Never really thought art was something I was good at. I didn't actually have any natural skill, I would say. Like, it wasn't like, whoa, I can really draw. And I wasn't someone who used to draw at school a lot. I think I've always been a creative in the way I think. Like, very curious, very ambitious, very willing to test myself in any way. But I don't think any of that came out until I went through that and I really delved in. I was doing like massive clay pieces and sculpture pieces. I'm like, I've never done anything like this before. So very interesting time.
Okay. And so art school?
I studied psychology and minored in art.
Okay. Where was that at?
That was at Deakin. I did the first year on campus and then the final 2 on the road.
Okay. And psychology, learning about psychology, how's that helped?
It's so fascinating. I think art, adventure, and psychology all tie in, and psychology is almost that running. I mean, art always looks at questions. It's like, you do something to explore a question. It's like, what's identity or what is this? You're asking questions to understand why we do what we do. It's the same with psychology. It's like, why do we create? That's just another question. Why do we do the things that we do? So I think, as not coherent as it sounds, it all makes sense.
Okay. And back to limits, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when you find your limit? Doesn't matter what it is. What do you do then?
I don't know. I guess I have found my limit. But it definitely helps me form a sense of awe, especially if it helps me progress. Like, even just, for example, I've just come back from the snow and just looking at the progress from this year to the last and opportunities even that happen, like I would never have thought happen, gives me that massive sense of awe that I can do anything, and it makes me think more ambitiously and do things more ambitiously. And I think the more in awe I am, the more of just like this fuel I get, because I am living a life that has no predetermined path. It's not like this is my career or I have a title as a job. My job is whatever I make it and how I choose to do that. And I think it's really important to have that foundation behind you that you can do anything. And so me pushing my limits and having that sense of like, 2 years ago I was able to run like 5K and now I can do marathons. It's like, if I have that belief behind me of knowing I can do anything like that, like, sky's the limit.
Right. So is there a limit to kind of this life that you've created for yourself? Because it's not a traditional life. And I think most people wonder, how long can you sustain a life like this? Traveling around a lot, it must get at some point. It's got to get tiring. Can you see a limit to that?
Yeah, I think how I differ to some, say, the reason I don't completely identify with that hardcore adventure is the fact that I love that downtime as well so much. I crave solitude. I crave that, just like that quiet time. And I think that's what sustains me. And maybe I won't be the person who finds the limit. Like, that's for Goggins. I don't want to be running on broken legs. Like, that is his purpose to show, not mine. And so, yeah, I probably won't be able to find a lot of limits, but I don't want to find the limit at the consequence of hurting myself or burning out or being tired. Like, I have that respect and intuition within to know that is humanly possible maybe, but I'm going to call it early because I'm actually happy to do a couple days pretty intense, couple days rest. So
at the moment, can you see yourself kind of, say, rooted to one spot? What is that? The thought of that kind of do to you psychologically, I guess?
I think eventually I wouldn't mind that. I just don't want to settle until it feels right. For example, say doing a snow season, I could have done the whole season, but it's not exactly what I was after. So I'm happy to do a little bit of it and then keep moving. So I think it's almost, I know where I am. I'm very much reliant on the opportunities around me. I'm reliant on the things around me for inspiration, for the network, and that's what I need for my job, is to kind of be that interactive person that gets opportunities from the things around me. And if I feel that's not for what I need, I will keep moving, but I think I will settle.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where do you think?
It depends on the opportunities.
What kind of place?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it has anything to do with location or anything I could describe. It's going to be based on, I guess, the inspiration and opportunities that are around me.
So you don't have a preference, like coast or mountains or?
Oh, I love both. I definitely love mountains. Do need a bit of a beach fix, but I don't think it's going to be determined based on location.
Yeah. Okay, going a bit more in the near future. Mm-hmm. Last question. One last question. I promise. Next year of your life, what's happening?
That's a good question. I think I struggle with this so much because I love to know, but the fact that the way I work is so much based on things just popping up, like all the opportunities that came on the East Coast. I couldn't have said, hey, I'm hitting the road for the next 4 months and I want to go climbing and ice climbing and all these things, but I know how they feel when the opportunity is presented. But in terms of more practical things that I can actually kind of plan, I definitely want to go into more exhibition spaces and really push the ideas that I have in my head out into the real world. And definitely start to bring adventure psychology and art more together. So through more podcasting, more talking and sharing, and more creating. And
one last thing, plug your podcast.
Oh, yeah. So I do have a podcast called Explore Your Core, and that's exactly what started about being on the road and just realizing my path is really daunting and really scary because it's not predicted. It's not like here is exactly where it is. I'm very much taking on what's coming my way. And so I talk to other creatives, artists, adventurers, entrepreneurs, of people that are paving their own path and how they have the resilience for that.
All right, this is going to be like John Farnham's farewell tour. One last question.
Please, go.
Dealing with the daunting, how would you recommend, just a bit of advice thrown out there for people who are kind of dealing with that and maybe up against what they see as an impossible task?
Yeah.
How would you advise somebody to get started?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things. One is the practical advice I'd say, and the other is more like internal. Practical is to surround yourself with other people doing the same thing. Like, I am so honored that I have the podcast, for example, because I now have 50 people that I'm like, okay, that idea sounded pretty impossible, but they did it. They thought the same thing as well, that who were they to be able to try it, and that's going to be really hard, but they did it. And so just having so many people around me that also live this kind of lifestyle of being an artist or a creative, and just knowing you kind of build your own tribe rather than being the one who's like going on their own path. And I think as well, just going inwards, like to explore so far inwards that you intuitively know it's going to work out.
Okay, that works. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
All right.